The summary of the story is that Ukraine launched a daring and calculated strike on the Crimean Bridge, setting it ablaze and shaking one of Russia's most important supply routes. This bridge was not only a physical link between Russia and Crimea but also a powerful symbol of Moscow's claim over the annexed peninsula. Its destruction raises the critical question of whether Russia's supply line to Crimea is permanently cut or only temporarily disrupted, and it highlights Ukraine's growing ability to target the very heart of Russia's infrastructure. Hello everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor channel. Please subscribe my channel. Ukraine's bold strike on the Crimean Bridge has captured global attention. The images of flames engulfing the steel arches shocked the Russian public and military leadership while sending an undeniable signal to the rest of the world. For years the bridge stood as the crown jewel of Russian infrastructure projects, linking the Russian mainland to Crimea after its annexation in 2014. It was meant to symbolize permanence, stability, and Moscow's unshakable control. But in a single night of fire and explosions, that symbol was cracked and the entire concept of Russian logistical superiority in the south of Ukraine was brought into question. The bridge from the outside was massive, stretching almost 19 kilometers across the Kerch Strait. Built with billions of dollars in Russian state funds, it had 4 wide lanes of road traffic and a parallel railway system that carried everything from passenger trains to fuel tankers and military hardware. Its concrete pillars were designed to resist both natural forces and any possible sabotage, or at least that was the assumption. When it first opened in 2018, Vladimir Putin himself drove across it in a ceremonial truck, declaring to the Russian people that Crimea was forever bound to the motherland. The exterior design, from the sweeping steel arches to the heavy road decks, projected not only engineering power but also political ambition. From this exterior perspective, the bridge looked unshakable. Its white arches gleamed in the sun, and Russia presented it as a marvel of modern construction, one that had to withstand the harsh weather of the Black Sea, the ice of winter, and the constant weight of convoys. Russian propaganda hailed it as indestructible. Yet, Ukraine found a way to strike directly at the heart of this monument to Russian permanence. The flames that erupted on the bridge turned the image upside down. Instead of steel and concrete strength, the world saw black smoke and collapsed roadways. The very same exterior that was meant to be a fortress became the most public display of Russian vulnerability in years. Looking inside, the structure of the bridge was both complex and sophisticated. The interior systems included layers of reinforced steel, concrete, and monitoring technologies designed to measure vibrations, weight loads, and even attempts at sabotage. Inside the railway lines, pipelines and fuel containers often carried crucial supplies to Russian troops dug in across southern Ukraine and Crimea. The inner design was supposed to prevent catastrophic failure. Even if one section was damaged, engineers claimed traffic could be rerouted or restored quickly. But the reality proved different. Ukraine's strike exposed that the internal safeguards were not enough when faced with determined precision attacks. The interior protection measures, though advanced on paper, were bypassed in practice, leaving both road and rail sections vulnerable to destruction. In terms of performance, the bridge had always been more than just infrastructure, it was a lifeline. Russia depended on it heavily to supply not only its civilian population in Crimea but also its entire military presence in the peninsula and southern Ukraine. Every tank, armored vehicle, artillery shell, and fuel truck that rolled into Crimea after 2018 often made its way across the Kerch Bridge. It allowed Russia to move tens of thousands of tons of military hardware efficiently and to sustain the war effort with a steady flow of logistics. Without the bridge, Russia would be forced to reroute supplies through ferries across the strait or through vulnerable overland routes exposed to Ukrainian strikes. This performance factor is what made the strike so devastating. By hitting the bridge, Ukraine did not just damage concrete and steel, it disrupted an entire supply network. The performance of the bridge as Russia's logistical superhighway was suddenly questioned. Russian commanders, already struggling with stretched supply lines, faced the possibility of bottlenecks, shortages, and delays in moving troops and ammunition. The bridge, once a smooth-performing artery, now became a fragile and unreliable connection. Ukraine's strike sent shockwaves through Russia's military machine because it proved that even the strongest logistical system could be interrupted. The safety features of the bridge were also brought under intense scrutiny. When it was designed, Russian engineers claimed the bridge had advanced fire suppression systems, structural reinforcements, and even naval patrols stationed nearby to ensure no hostile action could endanger it. There were radar systems, surveillance drones, and constant monitoring meant to detect threats long before they reached the bridge. But when the flames erupted, those safety features were exposed as inadequate. The fire suppression systems could not contain the massive blaze that spread across fuel wagons. Naval patrols and radar detection failed to stop the attack. For ordinary Russians, this was not only a material failure but also a psychological one. The safety mechanisms they trusted were shown to be incapable of protecting the symbol of Russian might. Unique selling points are what made the Crimean Bridge stand out in the first place, and ironically, what made it such a high-value target. It was not just a transport route, it was a symbol of conquest. Russia presented it as proof that Crimea was no longer isolated, that Moscow had delivered prosperity and permanence to the peninsula. Internationally, it stood as a monument to defiance against Western sanctions and isolation. Putin's government promoted the bridge as a tourist attraction, a place where Russians could proudly drive and declare Crimea theirs. It was this symbolic uniqueness that made Ukraine's strike so powerful. Destroying or damaging an ordinary road might cause inconvenience. Damaging this bridge sent a message across the globe. It said that Ukraine could strike Russia at its deepest points, that symbols of control could be reduced to rubble, and that Moscow's boasts could be turned into ashes. When considering the price, the bridge was estimated to have cost Russia around $4 billion to build, one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in its modern history. Beyond the financial price, there was the political cost. Russia staked its prestige on the project, using it as propaganda and as proof of Crimea's integration. Ukraine's strike added a new price tag: the cost of repair, the cost of rerouted logistics, and the cost of weakened morale. Billions more will now need to be spent to restore or defend it, all while Ukraine continues to target it with drones, missiles, and sabotage. The strike turned what was once an investment in Russian pride into a liability that constantly drains resources. In conclusion, the flames on the Crimean Bridge were more than just fire on steel. They symbolized the fragility of Russia's control in Crimea, the vulnerability of its supply lines, and the determination of Ukraine to strike where it matters most. The world watched as one of the largest bridges in Europe went from being a monument of permanence to a battlefield scar. Ukraine's bold strike did not just set a bridge ablaze, it lit up the reality that Russia's grip on Crimea is not unbreakable. Whether or not the supply line is permanently cut, the psychological impact has already been delivered. For Russia, the bridge will never again be the unshakable symbol it once was. For Ukraine, the strike was proof that resilience, strategy, and determination can turn even the mightiest monuments into burning reminders of vulnerability.